The October morning in Portland, Oregon, carried a crisp autumn chill that seeped through the windows of Laura Mitchell's cozy suburban home. At 38, Laura stood in her sunlit kitchen, the hum of the coffee maker filling the quiet space as she pressed its button. The digital clock on the counter blinked 6:45 a.m. She had to be at the biotech lab by 8 o'clock, where she led a team developing cutting-edge gene therapies. Her days were a juggling act, demanding research deadlines balanced against her role as a single mother. "Sophie, you awake?" she called, pulling a carton of almond milk from the fridge for her daughter's cereal. Silence answered her. With a sigh, Laura set the carton down and jogged upstairs, her sneakers soft against the hardwood steps. In a room painted soft sage green, 10-year-old Sophie lay curled under a teal quilt, her auburn hair splayed across the pillow like a halo. The dawn light slipped through a gap in the blinds, casting a warm glow on her freckled face. "Time to rise, kiddo," Laura said, nudging her gently. Sophie stirred, her hazel eyes, mirror images of her mother's, fluttering open. She yawned, stretching like a cat. "Mom, how many days till my birthday?" Laura smiled, brushing a stray lock from Sophie's forehead. 3 days. Saturday. Got your wish list ready." Sophie's face lit up, and she scrambled to her nightstand, pulling out a crumpled sheet of paper titled Sophie's 11th birthday in her careful, looping handwriting. "I want a telescope," she declared, her voice brimming with conviction, "like the one Dad used." The words landed like a quiet ache in Laura's chest. For years had passed since her husband, Eric, died suddenly of a heart attack at 35. An astronomy professor at Portland State University, he'd been the kind of man who could make the cosmos feel like a story written just for you. On clear nights, he'd set up his telescope in their backyard. Sophie perched on his knee as he pointed out constellations and whispered tales of distant stars. Sophie was only 6 when he died, too young to fully grasp the loss, but old enough to feel the void he left. Her memories of him were fragments, his laugh, his gentle hands adjusting the telescope, his voice promising she'd one day explore the universe herself. "I'll think about it," Laura promised, her voice softer than she intended. "But right now, you've got a math quiz to ace. Let's move." Sophie groaned but swung her legs out of bed, her bare feet hitting the rug with a thud. Laura lingered a moment, watching her daughter rummage for socks. Sophie's resilience amazed her. Despite the grief that had reshaped their lives, she was a bright, curious girl who tackled school projects with the same intensity Eric once brought to his research. Downstairs, Laura poured cereal and set out a glass of orange juice. Sophie bounded in, now dressed in jeans and a hoodie, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mom, can I stay late at school for the science club?" she asked, spooning cereal into her mouth. "Only if you finish your homework first," Laura said, sipping her coffee. "And no sneaking extra lab time with Miss Carter." Sophie grinned, guilty as charged. Science was her sanctuary, just as it had been Eric's. By 7:15, Laura was ushering Sophie out the door to the school bus stop at the end of their quiet street. The neighborhood, with its maple-lined sidewalks and craftsman-style homes, felt like a safe cocoon, but Laura knew safety was an illusion. Life could unravel in an instant. She'd learned that the hard way. As the yellow bus pulled away, Sophie waving from the window, Laura climbed into her hybrid SUV and headed to the lab. At the Portland Biotech Institute, Laura's morning was a blur of meetings and data analysis. Her team was on the cusp of a breakthrough in targeted cancer therapies, and the pressure was relentless. But her mind kept drifting to Sophie's birthday. The party was set for Saturday, 6 friends, a homemade cake, and, inevitably, her mother and sister. Around 10 a.m., she found a voicemail from her mother, Ellen Wilson, in her inbox. "Laura, how's the prep for Sophie's birthday coming? Kate and I will help. Let's talk details over lunch tomorrow. Love, Mom." Laura's jaw tightened. Ellen, 62, was a powerhouse in Portland's real estate scene, always impeccably dressed, her silver bob never out of place. She thrived in social circles, her charm masking a controlling streak. Their relationship had been strained for years, especially after Ellen's vocal disapproval of Laura's marriage to Eric. "That stargazer has no ambition," she'd scoffed, dismissing his academic career. Ironically, Eric's parents, both deceased, had left a substantial trust fund for Sophie, a fact Ellen never let Laura forget. Her younger sister, Kate, 36, was another complication, a free spirit who flitted between jobs, barista, yoga instructor, freelance graphic designer. Kate had a history of failed relationships and a subtle resentment toward Laura's stable life. Since Eric's death, Kate's behavior towards Sophie had grown erratic, swinging between lavish gifts and distant, almost cold interactions. Sophie had noticed, confiding once that, "Aunt Kate looks at me funny sometimes." Laura pushed the thoughts aside and refocused on her work. But as she reviewed lab results, a nagging unease settled in her gut. Ellen's message wasn't just about the party, it was a reminder of her constant meddling, and Kate's involvement only deepened Laura's wariness. Something felt off, like the first tremor before an earthquake. That afternoon, over coffee with her colleague Rachel, a 39-year-old cybersecurity expert and friend since their college days at Oregon State. Laura vented. Sophie's inviting 6 friends to the party, she said, stirring her latte. Mom and Kate insist on coming too. Rachel set her cup down, her sharp blue eyes narrowing. Ellen and Kate? You sure that's a good idea? Laura shrugged, though her shoulders felt heavy. They're family. I don't have a choice. How've they been lately? Rachel asked, her tone careful. Mom's her usual controlling self, and Sophie mentioned they've been poking around her room, probably snooping for gift ideas. Or something else. Rachel leaned forward, her voice low. Laura, I've got a bad feeling about this. Ellen's been way too interested in Sophie's trust fund lately, hasn't she? All that talk about securing her future. Laura nodded, her fingers tightening around her cup. She keeps hinting I'm mismanaging it, like she wants control. Rachel's expression hardened. You need to be careful. Let's talk precautions, just in case. Laura didn't fully grasp what Rachel meant, but the warning stuck. As she drove home that evening, the Portland skyline fading in her rearview mirror, she couldn't shake the sense that her family's presence at Sophie's birthday wasn't just about celebration. It was a move in a game she didn't yet understand, one where trust was the first casualty. The Portland Biotech Institute buzzed with the low hum of machinery and the faint clatter of keyboards as Laura Mitchell settled into her lab, the sterile white walls a stark contrast to the autumn vibrancy outside. It was mid-morning on Thursday, 2 days before Sophie's 11th birthday, and Laura's mind was a tug-of-war between her work and the voicemail from her mother, Ellen Wilson, still looping in her head. Ellen's overly cheerful tone, "Let's talk details over lunch tomorrow," felt less like an offer and more like a summons. Laura tapped her pen against a stack of research notes, trying to focus on the latest gene therapy data, but her thoughts kept drifting to her mother's persistent meddling and her sister Kate's unpredictable behavior. At 10:30 a.m., Laura's phone buzzed with a text from her colleague Rachel, the cybersecurity specialist who'd become her confidant since college. Lunch at noon? Need to talk about Sophie's party. Laura replied with a quick yes. Meet you at Brood Awakening, the cozy coffee shop near the lab. She needed Rachel's sharp instincts now more than ever. The unease from yesterday, sparked by Sophie's comment about Ellen and Kate snooping in her room, hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened, like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. By noon, Laura pushed through the coffee shop's glass door, the scent of roasted beans and cinnamon enveloping her. Rachel was already at a corner table, her laptop open, her dark blonde hair pulled into a messy bun. She waved Laura over, her expression a mix of concern and determination. You look like you didn't sleep, Rachel said as Laura slid into the booth. Rough morning, Laura admitted, ordering a latte. Sophie's excited about her birthday, but I can't shake this feeling about Mom and Kate. That voicemail, Mom's already planning the party like it's her show. Rachel leaned forward, her voice low. What's Ellen been saying about Sophie lately? Anything specific? Laura hesitated, stirring her coffee. She keeps bringing up Sophie's trust fund. Says I'm not managing it properly for her future. She's been pushing to meet with the financial advisor, which is weird. She's never cared about the details before. Rachel's eyes narrowed. And Kate? She's been off since Eric died, right? Laura nodded, her stomach twisted. Yeah, she swings between spoiling Sophie with gifts and acting distant. Sophie told me last week Kate gave her this weird look when she mentioned wanting a telescope, like she was annoyed. Rachel tapped her fingers on the table, a habit when her mind was racing. Okay, let's piece this together. Ellen's obsessed with control, and Kate's jealous of your life, your career, your house. Sophie, Eric's trust fund is a big chunk of money, isn't it? Big enough, Laura said quietly. Eric's parents, both successful engineers, had left Sophie a trust worth over $1 million to be accessed when she turned 18, with Laura as the executor. Ellen had always dismissed Eric's academic career, but the trust fund had changed her tune, her comments laced with a subtle greed Laura hadn't noticed until recently. Here's what's bugging me, Rachel continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophie said they were snooping in her room. What if they're looking for something specific, like documents about the trust? Or, she trailed off, her expression darkening. Or what? Laura pressed, her heart rate ticking up. Rachel took a deep breath. Sophie's medical records. You told me she's got a severe nut allergy, right? If they're poking around her files, they might be planning something worse than just meddling with money. Laura's blood ran cold. Sophie's allergy was no secret. Her anaphylactic reaction to nuts had landed her in the ER twice as a toddler. The family knew to avoid anything with nuts, and Laura kept an EpiPen in every bag. The thought of Ellen or Kate exploiting that vulnerability seemed unthinkable, but Rachel's words planted a seed of dread. You really think they'd go that far? I don't know, Rachel admitted, but Ellen's manipulative and Kate's desperate. People do crazy things for money. We need to be proactive. Laura's mind raced. What do you suggest? First, secure Sophie's medical records and any trust documents. Keep them somewhere safe, not at home. Second, Let's set up some safeguards for the party. I can bring a discreet recording device, something you can activate if things feel off. And we should talk to Sophie, make sure she knows to tell you if anything seems weird. Laura nodded, though her chest felt tight. The idea of surveilling her own family made her skin crawl, but Rachel's logic was sound. Ellen's history of overstepping, criticizing Laura's parenting, undermining her marriage to Eric, had always carried a subtle threat. And Kate's envy, masked by her carefree persona, had grown sharper since Eric's death, as if Laura's resilience as a single mother was a personal affront. Back at the lab, Laura couldn't focus. She locked Sophie's medical file in her office safe and emailed the trust fund advisor to confirm that only she could access the account. By 4 p.m., she left work early, determined to beat the Portland traffic and spend the evening with Sophie. But as she pulled into her driveway, her heart sank. Ellen's sleek blue SUV was parked out front, a full day earlier than expected. Laura entered the house, the smell of vanilla and sugar wafting from the kitchen. Ellen and Kate stood at the counter, mixing batter in a glass bowl. They froze when they saw her, their smiles too quick, too bright. "Laura, you're home already?" Ellen said, her voice syrupy. She wore a tailored blazer, her silver hair gleaming under the kitchen lights. "It's only 4:30, Laura replied, setting her bag down. Her eyes caught a small, unfamiliar vial on the counter, its label obscured. Kate shoved the bowl into the fridge, her movements jerky. "Almost ruined the surprise," she said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back, but a strand fell loose, betraying her nerves. "What are you making?" Laura asked, her tone neutral but her pulse quickening. "A cake for Sophie's party," Ellen said smoothly. "Kate found a special recipe. She'll love it." Laura pointed to the vial. "And that, just a flavor extract," Kate said, snatching it and tucking it into a cabinet. "Gives the cake a unique twist." Before Laura could press further, the front door burst open, and Sophie ran in, her backpack bouncing. "Mom, Grandma, Aunt Kate." She dropped her bag and hugged Laura, oblivious to the tension. Ellen swooped in, kissing Sophie's cheek, her perfume overwhelming. "My birthday, girl. We're making something special for you." Kate nudged Sophie toward the living room. "Go watch TV, kid. We've got grown-up stuff to finish." Sophie's face fell, but she obeyed, dragging her backpack with her. Laura's unease solidified into suspicion. "I was going to help with the cake," she said, testing them. "No need," Ellen replied, her smile tight. "We've got it under control." Upstairs, Laura slipped into Sophie's room while Ellen and Kate were distracted. Everything looked normal, books neatly stacked, telescope posters on the walls, but the folder with Sophie's medical records, usually tucked in a desk drawer, was slightly askew. Laura's hands trembled as she opened it. The pages were in order, but the allergy section was dog-eared, as if someone had lingered there. She texted Rachel, "Mom and Kate are here early. They're acting weird," and Sophie's medical file was moved. Rachel's reply was instant. "Come to my place tonight. I've got something for you." As Laura changed for dinner, her mind churned. Ellen's ambition and Kate's resentment were a dangerous combination, and Sophie was caught in the crosshairs. Whatever they were planning, Laura vowed to protect her daughter, no matter the cost. The Friday evening air in Portland carried a damp chill, the kind that clung to your skin and hinted at rain. Laura Mitchell pulled into her driveway at 5 p.m., earlier than usual, her mind a tangle of suspicion and resolve. Tomorrow was Sophie's 11th birthday, and the party loomed like a test she hadn't studied for. The sight of her mother Ellen's blue SUV, parked brazenly in front of her house for the second day in a row, sent a jolt of irritation through her. Ellen hadn't mentioned coming tonight, and Kate's presence, confirmed by the faint laughter drifting from the kitchen, only sharpened Laura's unease. Inside, the house smelled of sugar and something sharper, like almond extract. Ellen and Kate stood at the kitchen counter, elbows deep in baking chaos. Flour dusted the counter, and a mixing bowl sat beside a scattering of eggshells. They froze when Laura entered, their faces flashing with surprise before settling into practiced smiles. "Laura, you're early again," Ellen said, her voice bright but edged with annoyance. Her silver bob was pristine, her silk scarf a splash of color against her tailored blouse. "Wrapped up a lab report," Laura said, setting her bag down. Her eyes locked on a small, amber-colored vial on the counter, identical to the one she'd seen yesterday. "What's that?" Kate, her dark hair tied back unevenly, snatched the vial and shoved it into a drawer. "Just flavoring oil," she said, her laugh too high-pitched. "For the cake. Sophie's gonna flip for it." Laura's stomach churned. Sophie's severe nut allergy made any unfamiliar ingredient a red flag. "What kind of flavoring?" she pressed, keeping her tone neutral. "Something special," Ellen cut in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Don't spoil the surprise, dear." Her smile was a mask, but her eyes darted to Kate, a silent warning. Before Laura could push further, Sophie burst through the front door, her backpack swinging. "Mom, Grandma, Aunt Kate." She hugged Laura tightly, her auburn hair bouncing. Ellen swooped in, enveloping Sophie in a cloud of jasmine perfume. "My darling, We're making your birthday cake. Sophie peeked at the counter. Can I help? Kate gently steered her toward the living room. Not yet, kiddo. Go to your homework. We've got this. Sophie's shoulders slumped, but she nodded and trudged off, clutching her backpack. Laura's unease hardened into a knot of dread. Ellen and Kate's secrecy, the mysterious vial, the moved medical file in Sophie's room, it all pointed to something deliberate. She excused herself to change, but detoured to Sophie's room. The medical folder was still there, but now a post-it note marked the page detailing Sophie's nut allergy, as if someone had flagged it for reference. Her pulse quickened. Was it paranoia? Or were her mother and sister plotting something unthinkable? Upstairs, Laura texted Rachel. They're here again. Baking. Same weird vial. Sophie's allergy page was marked. Rachel's reply was immediate. Get to my place by 8. I've got a plan. Laura's fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to confront Ellen and Kate, demand answers, but Rachel's caution held her back. Evidence was key, and she had none. Yet, dinner was a tense affair. Ellen and Kate kept up a stream of chatter, quizzing Sophie about school and her birthday wishes. What do you want most, sweetheart? Ellen asked, her smile syrupy. A telescope, Sophie said firmly, her hazel eyes bright. Like Dad's, to see the stars. Ellen's lips thinned. Stars are nice, but wouldn't you rather have something fun? A new dollhouse, maybe. I like science, Sophie replied, her tone unshakable. Kate's fork paused midair, her expression flickering with something Laura couldn't read. Irritation? Or envy? Science is cool, she said, but her voice lacked warmth. Laura's hand rested on Sophie's shoulder, a silent reassurance. Eric's memory lived in Sophie's love for the cosmos, and no one, not Ellen, not Kate, would diminish that. After dinner, Laura sent Sophie to shower. I'm running to Rachel's for a bit, she told her. I'll be back soon. Ellen's eyes narrowed. Rachel? That tech girl? What's she want now? She's dropping off a gift for Sophie, Laura said, grabbing her keys. Always so secretive. That one? Ellen muttered, her tone dripping with disdain. Laura didn't respond. She drove to Rachel's apartment, a sleek loft in Portland's Pearl District, her mind racing. Rachel met her at the door, her face grim. You okay? She asked, ushering Laura inside. Barely, Laura admitted, sinking onto the couch. They're hiding something. That vial. It's not just flavoring. And Sophie's medical file? Someone's been studying her allergy. Rachel nodded, pulling a small black device from a drawer. It was no bigger than a key fob, with a single red button. This is an emergency recorder, she said. 24 hours of audio, cloud-backed. If things go south at the party, press this. It'll capture everything. Laura turned the device over in her hand, its weight grounding. You think they'd actually hurt Sophie? Rachel's jaw tightened. I don't know, but Ellen's greedy, and Kate's unstable. That trust fund is motive enough for some people. And if they're messing with Sophie's allergy, she didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy. There's more, Rachel added, hesitating. Sophie called me yesterday after school. She was scared. Said she caught Ellen and Kate rifling through her desk when she got home. They were whispering about making the plan work. Laura's breath caught. Why didn't she tell me? She didn't want to worry you, Rachel said. She's protective of you, Laura. But she's smart. She's already taking steps. Steps. Laura frowned. Rachel's lips quirked into a small smile. She's got a surprise for tomorrow. Don't ask her about it. She wants it to be a secret, but trust her. That kid's got Eric's brains and your heart. Laura's eyes stung. Sophie, at 10, was navigating dangers no child should face, and yet her courage outshone Laura's own. What do I do now? Act normal, Rachel said. Keep them close tomorrow, but don't let them know you're onto them. I'll be at the party, and I'll have my own tech ready. If they try anything, we'll catch them. Back home, Laura found Sophie in pajamas, reading a book about black holes. She sat on the bed, brushing her daughter's damp hair. Excited for tomorrow? Sophie nodded, but her eyes were thoughtful. Mom, can I bring my backpack to the party? Laura raised an eyebrow. Why? It's special, Sophie said simply. I want to keep something safe. Laura thought of Rachel's cryptic hint about Sophie's surprise. Okay, she said, kissing Sophie's forehead. Whatever you need. That night, Laura barely slept. The recorder sat on her nightstand, a silent sentinel. Her mind replayed every interaction with Ellen and Kate, their forced smiles, the vial, the marked medical file. Eric's death, so sudden and unexplained, gnawed at her too. Had there been signs she'd missed? Was this new threat tied to his loss? As the clock ticked toward midnight, Laura stared at the ceiling, her resolve hardened. Tomorrow wasn't just Sophie's birthday, it was a battlefield. Ellen and Kate might think they held the upper hand, but Laura had something they didn't, a daughter whose bravery burned brighter than any star. Whatever game they were playing, Laura would end it. Saturday dawned bright in Portland, the October sun casting golden rays through the maple trees lining Laura Mitchell's street. The house hummed with the promise of Sophie's 11th birthday, but Laura's nerves were taut as she moved through the kitchen, arranging plates of fruit and setting out juice. The memory of Ellen and Kate's secretive behavior, the mysterious vial, the marked medical file, loomed like a shadow. At 7 a.m., Sophie bounded downstairs, her auburn hair bouncing, her hazel eyes alight with excitement. It's my birthday, she shouted, throwing her arms around Laura. Happy 11, my star, Laura said, hugging her tightly. She'd set out pancakes topped with 11 candles, their tiny flames flickering. Make a wish. Sophie closed her eyes, her face serious, then blew out the candles in one puff. What did you wish for? Laura asked. Sophie grinned. Can't tell, or it won't come true. Laura laughed, but her heart was heavy. Today wasn't just a celebration, it was a minefield. Rachel's warning and the recording device in her pocket felt like lifelines. As Sophie ate, Laura decorated the living room with balloons and a glittery Happy Birthday Sophie banner. Sophie, clutching her backpack, watched from the couch. What's in there? Laura asked, curiosity piqued. A secret, Sophie said, her smile cryptic. Something important. Laura didn't press, trusting Rachel's hint that Sophie had a plan. At 10 a.m., the doorbell chimed, and Ellen and Kate arrived, carrying a massive cake box and gift bags. Ellen, in a crisp blazer, kissed Sophie's cheek. Happy birthday, my angel. Kate, her dark hair loose, set the cake box down, her movements jittery. Keep the cake in the fridge, Laura said, watching Kate closely. Kate nodded, but her eyes darted to Ellen, a silent exchange that set Laura's nerves on edge. By noon, Sophie's friends, Emma, Liam, Olivia, Noah, Isabella, and Jake, filled the house with laughter, their chatter mingling with pop music. Sophie kept her backpack close, even as she played games. Rachel arrived last, her sharp blue eyes scanning the room. She handed Sophie a small box. Happy birthday, kid. It's a digital camera, capture every moment. Sophie's knowing smile suggested they shared a secret. Laura pulled Rachel aside. What's Sophie planning? Rachel's voice was low. She's got evidence. Trust her. She tapped her own bag, where Laura knew she kept surveillance gear. I'm ready if things go south. The party hummed along, pinned the tail on the donkey, a scavenger hunt. But Ellen and Kate's behavior grew stranger. They hovered near the kitchen, whispering, checking their phones. Ellen's forced cheer grated, and Kate's glances at Sophie felt predatory. Laura's hand grazed the recorder in her pocket, her pulse racing. At 2 p.m., Laura called, time for presents. Sophie sat on the couch, unwrapping gifts with glee, a sketchbook from Emma, a space encyclopedia from Liam, a star chart from Olivia. Ellen and Kate presented a lavish dollhouse, its plastic gleam out of place among Sophie's science-themed haul. Thank you, Sophie said politely, but her eyes dimmed. Laura stepped forward, her heart pounding. My turn. She handed Sophie a long box. Sophie tore it open, gasping at the sleek children's telescope inside. It's like Dad's, she cried, throwing her arms around Laura. Ellen's smile faltered. A telescope? For an 11-year-old? It's what she wanted, Laura said firmly, her gaze unwavering. The tension broke as Laura announced, cake time. Ellen and Kate hurried to the kitchen, emerging with a towering chocolate cake, 11 candles glowing. The guests gathered, singing happy birthday as Sophie beamed, her face lit by the flames. Laura readied her camera, but her eyes stayed on Ellen and Kate, their nervous glances betraying them. As the song ended, Sophie leaned to blow out the candles. Suddenly, Kate lunged forward. Surprise, she shouted, smashing the cake into Sophie's face. Chocolate frosting splattered, clinging to Sophie's hair and clothes. Ellen laughed, snapping photos with her phone. Perfect for Instagram. The room froze. Sophie's friends gasped, some shrinking back in fear. Laura's blood turned to ice, her hand gripping the recorder. Sophie, are you okay? She managed, her voice trembling. Sophie stood still, frosting dripping from her chin, but instead of tears, her eyes held a steely calm. Mom, she said, her voice steady, can I show my present now? Laura nodded, confused. Ellen and Kate's laughter died, their faces paling. Sophie reached into her backpack and pulled out a small tablet. This is from Grandma and Aunt Kate, she said, her tone eerily composed. She tapped the screen, and a video played. The footage showed Ellen and Kate in the kitchen the previous night, mixing the cake batter. Ellen's voice was clear. I checked Sophie's allergy file. A tiny bit of hazelnut oil won't kill her right away, just enough to cause a reaction after the party. Kate's voice followed. Is the trust fund paperwork ready? Lawyers set. Ellen replied. If Sophie's sick, we'll push for custody. The trust will be ours. The video shifted to another scene, Ellen and Kate in the living room, unaware of the camera. Laura's too stubborn, Ellen said. If Sophie has a severe reaction, we'll claim neglect. The courts will side with us. The guests stood in stunned silence, horror etched on their faces. Ellen's mouth opened, but no words came. Kate clutched the table, trembling. It's not what it looks like. Ellen finally stammered, her voice shrill. Sophie, still covered in frosting, looked at Laura. I didn't eat the cake, Mom. I saw them sneaking around my room, looking at my allergy file. I knew they were up to something. Laura's knees weakened, but she forced herself to stay upright. Sophie, she whispered, her voice breaking. How? Sophie pointed to a hair clip on her head, a tiny camera, disguised. Aunt Rachel helped me. Rachel stepped forward, her face grim. I've backed up the video, she said, holding the tablet. She pulled out her phone, already dialing 911. Ellen lunged for the tablet. This is a misunderstanding. Rachel blocked her. It's attempted harm to a child. The police will decide. Laura's world tilted. Her mother and sister had plotted to poison Sophie, to exploit her allergy for a trust fund. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd imagined, but Sophie's bravery, her quiet, calculated strength held her together. As the sound of sirens grew closer, Laura knew the real battle was just beginning. But with Sophie and Rachel by her side, she was ready to fight. The Portland afternoon sun filtered through the living room curtains, casting soft light on the wreckage of Sophie's 11th birthday party. Balloons sagged, and the remnants of the tainted chocolate cake sat untouched, cordoned off by police tape. Laura Mitchell stood in the bathroom, gently wiping frosting from Sophie's face with a warm cloth, her hands trembling but deliberate. Sophie's hazel eyes, so like her own, were calm, no trace of fear, only a quiet strength that both awed and broke Laura's heart. "Are you sure you're okay?" Laura asked, checking Sophie's skin for any sign of an allergic reaction. "I'm fine, Mom," Sophie said, her voice steady. "I didn't eat the cake. I knew Grandma and Aunt Kate were acting weird." Laura's throat tightened. "How did you know to record them?" Sophie pointed to the hair clip camera, now on the counter. "I saw them snooping in my room, reading my allergy file. I called Aunt Rachel from your phone when they weren't looking. She gave me the camera and showed me how to hide it." Laura's eyes welled up. Her 10-year-old daughter had outsmarted a plot that could have killed her. "You're so brave," she whispered, pulling Sophie into a hug. "But you should have told me." Sophie's voice was small. "I didn't want you to be sad. Grandma's your mom, right? I thought we needed proof." The weight of Sophie's words, of her need to protect Laura's feelings, hit like a tidal wave. Laura kissed her forehead, vowing to shield her from ever having to carry that burden again. In the living room, chaos reigned. Police officers filled the space, their radios crackled. Rachel stood by the couch, showing the tablet video to a stern-faced officer. The footage of Ellen and Kate plotting to trigger Sophie's allergy looped, each word a nail in their coffin. Ellen, her silver bob disheveled, shouted, "This is a family matter. You've got no right." Her polished facade had crumbled, replaced by raw panic. Kate, slumped in a chair, sobbed into her hands, her dark hair a curtain over her face. "We didn't mean to hurt her," she mumbled. Rachel's voice was ice. "You mixed nut oil into a cake for a child with a deadly allergy. That's not a misunderstanding, it's attempted harm." She handed the tablet to the officer, who nodded grimly. Laura emerged from the bathroom, Sophie's hand in hers. The officer approached. "Mrs. Mitchell, is your daughter okay? We'll need a medical check to be safe." "No symptoms," Laura said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "She didn't ingest anything, thank God." The officer gestured to the cake. "We're taking samples for analysis. Mrs. Wilson and Ms. Mitchell, you're under arrest for suspected endangerment of a minor and attempted fraud." Ellen's face reddened. "This is outrageous. That trust fund belongs to our family." "Enough, Mom," Kate choked out, her voice barely audible. "It's over." As the officers cuffed Ellen and Kate, paramedics arrived to examine Sophie. Her vitals were normal, a relief that made Laura's knees weak. The guests, Sophie's friends and their parents, huddled in the kitchen, whispering. Some parents offered quiet words of support, praising Sophie's courage. The children, confused but gentle, hugged Sophie goodbye as they left. Rachel stayed, her presence a lifeline. She made tea in the kitchen, sitting with Laura and Sophie as the house emptied. "I'm so sorry you went through this," she said, her hand on Laura's. "But Sophie, she's incredible. How did she even think to call you?" Laura asked, still reeling. Sophie, sipping juice, answered, "I hid behind Dad's telescope when I saw Grandma and Kate in my room. They were reading my allergy file and saying stuff about the plan. I was scared, so I used your phone to call Aunt Rachel." Rachel smiled faintly. "She's got your instincts, Laura. I gave her the camera and taught her to set it up. Didn't expect her to catch that." Laura's heart ached. Sophie, at 10, had navigated a betrayal most adults couldn't fathom. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked again, softer. Sophie looked down. "You've been so sad since Dad died. I didn't want you to fight with Grandma." Laura pulled her close, tears falling. Eric's death had left scars, but Sophie's love, her fierce, protective love, was a light in the dark. "We're a team, okay? No more secrets." Sophie nodded, her smile small but real. 3 months later, the trial concluded. Ellen received a 15-year sentence for attempted endangerment and fraud, her refusal to admit guilt only deepening her punishment. Kate, who confessed early, got 7 years with parole eligibility for cooperating. A shocking revelation emerged during the investigation. Eric's heart attack might not have been natural. Traces of tampered medication were found in old lab reports, pointing to Ellen's involvement. A murder charge was pending, and Laura felt a mix of grief and vindication. Laura and Sophie moved to an airy bungalow in Portland's Alberta Arts District. A fresh start. The trust fund, now securely managed, ensured Sophie's future. Laura's promotion at the lab brought stability, but the real triumph was their bond, unshakable, built on trust. On Sophie's 12th birthday, the new house glowed with warmth. Rachel, now family in all but name, arrived with a starry-themed science kit. Sophie's new friends filled the rooms with laughter, their gifts, books, puzzles, a constellation lamp, reflecting her passions. Laura watched from the kitchen, a chocolate cake, nut-free, homemade, ready with 12 candles. "Make a wish," Laura called as Sophie stood before the cake, her eyes bright. Sophie blew out the candles, then looked at Laura. "I wish for us to be a family with no secrets." Laura's heart swelled. "We already are," she said, hugging her. Outside, the spring breeze rustled the cherry blossoms, a promise of renewal. Laura glanced at a framed photo of Eric, his telescope beside Sophie. They were free, their scars a testament to their strength. A new season had begun, and Laura and Sophie would face it together.